This is episode 11 of the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Today we talk about mindfulness. You'll learn what mindfulness is, find ways to achieve mindfulness, and make it a daily habit. You'll come away, as we do in every podcast, with one doable that you can do this week to make yourself more mindful. Let's get started. This is the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast, and I'm Kim McLaughlin, the host of the show. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, inspirational coach, speaker, and best-selling author. I help people feed their soul by putting food in its proper place as nourishment, and I help them develop more functional ways to nurture themselves. Today on the podcast, we're talking about some basic skills, and basic doesn't mean simple or easy, and it doesn't mean that it's something that you should avoid. When we're talking about mindfulness, which is the topic of today, it's actually a pretty large topic, and I plan to spend quite a few podcasts talking about it. And I plan to get some guests into the show talking about their mindfulness practices and their thoughts about mindfulness. But we got to go through some understanding about what mindfulness is, and that is the focus of this show. Mindfulness, as you might recall, is one of the 6 core components to feed your soul: physical, emotional, mental, lifestyle, mindfulness, and self-love. In order to put all of these components into balance, we need to know what each component means. And today we're going to stick, like I said, pretty closely to mindfulness. What I think you'll find is when you look at mindfulness, that you'll see how overarching it is in all areas of your life. And it has a bigger win than just being mindful on a day-to-day basis. It will impact all of those other components, all the 5 other components, and your life in a pretty profound way. Mindfulness, I think, is hard this in this point in our culture and in our society, because we've really been encouraged to be kind of scattered and to be on all the time and to be doing things. There's a lot of distractions going on around us that I think catch our attention. They call A lot of people I know talk about that idea of squirrel, squirrel over there. And it's the idea that I'm talking to you or doing something right in front here, but we turn and we look over to the side and find something else that we pay attention to. So there are a lot of those kind of distractions that really catch our attention and lead us away from that mindful idea. There's also a lot of focus on TV and really being mindless when we're looking at television, and really allowing all the information to come to us rather than us just sitting with ourselves and sitting being present. I actually know a lot of my clients talk about mindlessness around television, and the more mindless we are, the more we will do things that don't satisfy ourselves. One of them is overeat and binge eat and emotional eat, because we're focused on something outside of ourselves than really being internally focused in that intuitive inner knowing and inner self. Another thing that stops us from being mindful is social media. There is a lot of information out there, and we can tend to look outside of ourselves to see what's going on with other people, and they can then be the focus of how we the lens of how we view our lives. And when we're spending time looking outside on others and how they live their lives, we actually are avoiding looking at ourselves and being in touch with what goes on inside of us internally. Another thing that keeps us stuck and keeps us out of mindfulness is this fast-paced world, we're encouraged a lot to be going quickly, to do things rapidly, to be involved in life in a very fast-paced way, which is another distraction from being in touch with our inner world. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about is what is mindfulness and how do we get in touch with that inner world and how we can let go of that fast-paced mindset. Also, what stops us from being mindful is our mind. It is a tricky, I call our mind a trickster, that it can take us off of our game and take us off of what is really important to us. The other thing that can stop us from being mindful is judgment of ourselves, judgment of other people, and being focused outside of ourselves and what's not right out there. So those are what keeps us stuck. So moving from there, we got to talk about what is mindfulness. How do we know if we're there? And I actually I went to church today, and one of the things the minister was talking about mindfulness, and what he was talking about was really being present in the moment. When we look at mindfulness, it is about being present in the mindful in being present in the moment. Here's a couple of quotes I wanted to give you. I have quite a few of them, so I'll read them to you and break them down so we can see how they might fit in your life. But I put down one quote is, what is mindfulness? It is a quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. It is a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensation. That's from the dictionary. Another quote about mindfulness is from the American Psychological Association, and they define mindfulness as a moment to moment awareness of one's experience without judgment. It's a state of being, not a trait. It can promote meditation or other activities or practice, but it's not synonymous with them. And we'll get in a little bit more about what that quote means in just a second. John Kabat-Zinn, who is he designed mindfulness-based stress reduction. He says it's the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. Well, we can break these down. These quotes really have a lot of similarities going on. It's about awareness, it's about an experience, leaving out judgment, it's a state of being, and it's doing it on purpose. So let's talk about that. Awareness is about being in touch with ourselves, awareness of your own experience. So that's really about me getting in touch inside of myself with what's going on with me. It is not about what you think I should be aware about. It's about me being in touch with myself. That actually can be a very hard concept to get or to actually do it because we're so distracted all the time. And paying attention to our own inner experience is tough. We're also saying one of the quotes has to pay attention then on purpose. So we're doing it in a mindful way. We're doing it on purpose where we want to be in touch, pay attention to our inner selves, to our inner experience. So that means we have to make a plan to do it. We have to do it on purpose. It's also about being in this state. It's a state of our own being and being in touch with our inner sense of self. It's also about the present moment, about this time where in this moment I am present and aware of what's going on. I'm mindful that I'm sitting here, my feet are on the floor, my bottom is in the chair, I'm talking a little bit with my hands right here, I'm looking at the audio that I'm recording, I'm also looking here at the video that I'm recording. So there's a lot that I am paying attention to on purpose in this moment to be more mindful about what's going on and also about what's going on inside of me. The last part of it is being non-judgmental. So as I notice myself sitting with my feet on the floor. I'm not judging myself of what I'm saying. I am letting the words come freely, and it's not anything that I am saying anything in my head negatively, right? If we're being judgmental, that to me indicates that we are looking at in the negative, and how negative we are with, or how we're judging about what's going on. Okay, so it's about awareness, experience without judgment, paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And also, there's one, the American Psychological Association said it can promote, you can have meditation and other activities or practice as part of it, but it's not synonymous. You don't have to have meditation or other practices. It's really about being present in your body, which is what I'm describing, I'm feeling right now, is being present in my body right now. It's also not about what's going to happen in the future when I'm done with this podcast. And it's not about the past, about what it took to get present or get here in this podcast. It's about in this moment right now. In this moment right now, where am I? Nothing about the past or the future. And this is kind of easier than it sounds. It takes being proactive and really putting intention into doing this. There are a lot of ways to achieve this mindfulness, and I have some ideas. There are many more than what I'm going to present to you, but these are just some starting spots. Some ways to achieve mindfulness is by being present, which we just talked about. Meditation is another way to do it. It's not necessary, but it can surely be very helpful. And meditation is really about focusing in on ourselves. I think we'll spend a whole podcast about how to do meditation. You can go on YouTube, you can do a lot of searches for meditation up until the point in time when I put some up here. But meditation is one direct way to achieve more mindfulness. An easy way that I love to achieve mindfulness is to focus on the breath. And it's really as simple as breathing in and breathing out. I think that's one of the easiest way, and that's what I teach my clients and the people that I work with, is the idea of the breath is a great way to be mindful, because when you breathe in and breathe out, you're totally in touch with your body and what's going on. It's a great way to get connected. Another way to achieve mindfulness is to practice yoga. It is something that you can do very easily. And once again, there are lots of YouTube videos that can help you do it, or go to a yoga class. It's really about being connected, body and breath, body, mind, spirit, and being connected while you're engaging in the moment. And the other thing I wrote down that I wanted to share about achieving mindfulness is it's a practice, not a destination. We'll always talk about mindfulness being a practice. It's not something you get to. You're never going to be at the end and be mindful enough. It's always a practice. It's a daily, moment by moment practice. So if we're talking about it being a practice, then we want to start thinking about, how do we set that intention for that practice? How can you practice mindfulness? One of the ways I think of to start being more mindful is to set a time limit. And that might sound kind of strange, but I think we get into being very goal oriented, that it's got to be, we sit in mindfulness, our mindful practice, for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. And I think that can be really hard. And I say set a time limit that's easy and that's really doable. A minute, 5 minutes, something really simple as you start practicing mindfulness, and just be in touch. I tell you, when you're being fully mindful, a minute can feel like a long period of time, especially when you've never done it. So just start and set a time limit and make it limited. The second thing to do when you're practicing mindfulness is to start focusing on the body. Where's your body? I was just telling you, I'm feeling my bottom in my chair. I'm feeling my feet on the floor. I'm feeling my back kind of sitting up straight. My hands are kind of rested on the table at this point in time, the table in front of me. And I'm noticing my body just sitting here as I am talking to you. That is mindfulness. Another way to focus on a mindfulness practice, what you can do is start feeling your breath. This is what we just talked about how to achieve mindfulness, is to focus on breathing. I'm focusing, my breathing is a little labored because I'm talking to you and I'm talking fast. And I probably should just slow down a little bit and notice my breath as I'm having this conversation with you. There I go. Now I'm focused more on my breath. And when I do that, I feel more connected to my body. When you're having this mindfulness practice, as you're practicing mindfulness, is notice when your mind begins to wander, when it's going out in other places. That's that idea earlier that we talked about with the squirrel, when you say, oh, I'm focusing over here, and then I look over here and I'm thinking about something different. Notice when your mind starts to wander and be kind to yourself when it's wandering and gently just focus it back. Okay, I'm focusing it back. I'm listening to Kim talk. I'm listening to the idea of mindfulness and focusing in myself about how I can be more mindful. So, noticing that mind wandering, gently bring it back and being kind to yourself when you start noticing it, because that's the point of being mindful, is we're noticing when we're in mindfulness, and when we're not in mindfulness, focus on bringing it back. When we're in this mindfulness state, I think you can look at some kind of ideas about bringing intention to the attention. Intention of your mindfulness practice, that you have an intention about being more mindful as you bring your attention to what's going on inside of you, and also your attention to what's going on around you that gets you out of that mindfulness practice. And then having an attitude of curiosity, of kindness, and non judgment as you're noticing. So, the intention that you're doing the mindfulness practice, the attention about where your mind is and are you present or not present, and the attitude of being kind to yourself as you notice what works with being mindful and what draws you away from being mindful. Those are important. Those are important. So think about that. The parts that bring you into being mindful, but also what takes you away from being mindful. Those are going to be important as we move along in our mindfulness practice. Why is mindfulness important? It helps you regulate your emotions. It decreases stress. It decreases anxiety and decreases depression. These are all proven through research, shows that it decreases stress, anxiety, depression, and helps you regulate your emotions. It also helps you focus your attention back in on yourself and what's going on. And that helps us with our thoughts, our feelings, and our behavior.
Hi, everyone. This is Kim, and my book is out. Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food is live. I recommend you get it. It has all my 6 components of feeding your soul, as well as my own story. Pick it up now. You can find it on my website at feedyoursoulunlimited.com. Thanks.
When we look at mindfulness, we then want to think about how can we make it a habit, because we pretty much had a habit of being mindless. And if we want to have mindfulness as a habit, one way we can do that is start creating a routine around mindfulness and making it a part of our day. As we said earlier, setting time aside for it, and set the reasonable goal about a small amount of time. I'd say 30 seconds to a minute. And you can set a timer on your clock for you just to focus for 30 seconds about breathing in and breathing out and just noticing it. Take mindful moments. I like doing that. I sometimes do that on my way into the restroom or on my way out, just deep breath in and a breath out. And that helps me become more intentional inside of myself. What you want is consistency, and just start to do it more often. And it could be twice a day. You do it for 30 seconds where you breathe in and out and pay attention to what's going on inside of yourself. It's easy to get distracted, and it's easy to be angry at ourselves that we haven't done it right or we haven't done it perfectly. So just be more realistic about what you can do and what you can't do, and celebrate your successes when you've gotten it done. I like to do check boxes daily in my daily journal. Is, have I done it? Yes. And I check it off that yes, I've done it. And that makes me feel happy that I've done it and that I've been successful in being more mindful and practicing my mindfulness on a daily basis. As you do this more and more, you're going to find more of a sense of a mindful life. And you'll notice more about the feelings and you'll notice more about the thoughts. And as you notice it more, become more connected to your breath in terms of not being judgmental, but just being more connected inside of yourself. When you engage in this mindfulness, I would suggest you do it daily, and we'll go over some ideas about what to do when we're talking about our doable for this week. But you can decide to be more mindful on a daily basis and also do it as you come across various points in time. When you're standing in the line to at the checkout counter at the grocery store, take a deep breath in, take a deep or breath out, and just notice how you feel inside of yourself. Notice your feet on the floor. Notice how it feels to be standing there, and notice if you have any judgment about how fast it's going in the line, how slow it's going in the line, other people in front of you, what are they buying, what are they not buying. But just as you notice that judgment, focus back in on yourself and what does this mean for me and what is going on for me. You also can develop a mindfulness habit on a daily basis is noticing your senses. That's a great way to be more mindful. Is, what's your sense of taste? What's the sense of touch and smell? And what are you seeing? And what's going on physically inside of yourself? Those are some great ways to be more mindful inside of yourself and get more connected. When we talk about mindfulness, as we do every week, we do a doable. And that, for those of you that haven't listened to this podcast, we do something each week that is a way to embody the idea of the week and to do something during the week that is something that moves you closer to whatever the idea of the podcast is. And today's idea for this podcast is the idea of mindfulness and how do we start practicing mindfulness on a regular basis. And I have some ideas for you. And what I encourage you to do is I have 8 of them. I have 8 ideas about what you could do. Choose one this week and do that as your doable for the week. So here's some ideas. The one daily practice for mindfulness that you can do is to practice gratitude. And gratitude is really ending your day, starting your day, saying something you're grateful for. I remember before when we had an earthquake in California. It was years ago, and we had, or years where I lived, and we had the electricity go out for quite a long time. And I remember when the electricity came back on, I was incredibly grateful to have that electricity, have the lights on, be able to use the stove. And I remember that idea of gratitude for what I had, even though it was something that I often actually still do take advantage of and don't always notice that it's something actually other people don't necessarily have. So practice a sense of gratitude is one idea. Another idea is focus on the breath. Focus on breathing in and breathing out and notice how that breathing feels, and do it for 30 seconds and just see. Everybody has 30 seconds. You're not so busy that you don't have 30 seconds where you can just set a timer and focus in and out on your breath. Another idea to practice mindfulness this week is to look into meditation. And there are many of you I know that already practice meditation. And have you done it lately? Look at doing that this week and getting back connected to meditation. For those of you that don't do meditation yet, we'll talk about that more in another podcast. But those of you that do it or have done it, do that this week. Another way of practicing mindfulness is increasing your awareness of what's around you. I like to do my awareness technique is to just notice what all the things are in front of me. I'm noticing the camera where I'm videotaping this podcast. I'm noticing the audio of my podcast. I'm noticing the pictures in front of me. And that's a really increased awareness of what's going on around me. And that helps me be very focused and present in this moment. Another way to practice mindfulness is to watch the world go by and just slow down. Sit out on a bench and just watch everybody go by. Watch the birds as they go by and be very connected to what's going on in this present moment. The sixth way to practice mindfulness is to monitor your thoughts. Are they positive thoughts? Are they negative thoughts? And really check in about what's going on with those thoughts. And if they're thoughts that aren't very kind, bring them back to center and focus on something that's more of a kind way of thinking, so that mindfulness is very connected to that inner sense of well-being. The seventh way I have to practice mindfulness is to just do nothing for 10 minutes. Sit and do nothing. I'm actually thinking of adding that as one of my doables more often for myself, is to sit for 10 minutes and do nothing, to not read anything, not listen to anything, not watch television, not talk with anybody, but just sit and do nothing. Just be for 10 minutes. That might feel like a long period of time. Do it for 1 minute, do it for 5 minutes, but focus on just being and doing nothing for 1 to 10 minutes. And just notice how that feels. The eighth way that I have to practice mindfulness this week is to listen to music. What's the music that gets you connected with your soul and gets you connected to your inner sense of self? Listen to that and feel more connected inside of yourself. I think you can hear as I'm talking about all these ways of being mindful that it's easier said than done. When I tell you just be present in this moment is easier said than done. And that's why this whole podcast is just focused on some ideas of mindfulness. And I encourage you to take one of the ideas and focus on it for the week. Don't do more than one, just focus on one and see how it feels and see what your practice is and how it feels to be more mindful and how it helps you in your life. This is Kim McLaughlin. This was a great podcast on mindfulness, and I look forward to having more conversations with you and more podcasts on more ideas as we get more in touch with mindfulness and all the other areas of the Feed Your Soul components. I look forward to seeing you next week on our next podcast. This is Kim McLaughlin saying bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We come to you every Monday with fresh new ideas to help you end emotional eating and put food in its proper place as nourishment. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and review it and let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us.